Hi, I'm Kaz, or Cassandra, either one. People call me Kaz. I've been asked by WeWork Martin Place here in Australia to teach a class on writing. So, the one thing I've been my entire life is a writer. Out of anything else I've ever been or dreamed of being, this is the one thing that goes back as far as I can remember without any influence or suggestion from anyone else. It's just something that I always enjoyed. Today, I am also the founder of a marketing agency and what I call the Slow Living Project, which I'm sure you'll hear more about here on my Facebook page and other places as it comes along. I have an office in the WeWork Piermont building, and I have been invited here today to speak specifically about how to let go and write that novel, kind of like a New Year's resolution themed novel writing class. As far as my own writing experience goes, I've been a student reporter, a music journalist, a published poet, a marketing writer, and published a number of short stories with my local writing community back in Utah, where I am from. I've written one novel start to finish, and I never had any intent on publishing that one. So that's going to have to be one that they publish after I'm dead or something. But maybe that's what made my first one so easy, is that it was not anything I ever intended on putting out there. But today I'm currently 2 years and 120,000 words into my second novel, and I plan to reach the editing phase later this year. I haven't published a novel yet, per se. So that's me, and that's boring, so let's get started. First of all, this is a conversation and not just a presentation. This was the class that I taught, and now that I'm recording for everybody in the class to have a copy, but also I'm recording this for my Facebook page and other places. So if you're watching this, the conversation exists wherever you're watching it. You can tweet me, you can comment me, you can Snapchat me, pretty much anything you want to do. So back to the first page, you can follow me on Snapchat, Twitter, and Instagram as Are You With Kaz, or you can follow me on Facebook as Are You With Kaz. So this is a conversation, not a presentation. I will not speak at you. I'm here to tailor the conversation to where you want to go with this. And this is your journey. So I really want you to figure out what you can get out of this and ask me questions. Get involved. So when I taught in class, we went around the room and we asked these questions, just a little introduction. And these are things that now that you're listening to the recording, I want you just to think about for yourself. What do you want out of this? What is your goal out of listening to this presentation? What currently stops you from achieving that goal? And do you already have a book in mind? And what kind of book is it? And let me know, because I'm curious. So we also went through a couple quick questions in class about how many people have tried writing a novel, how many have actually written one, how many have been published, not necessarily just a novel, but anything, a professional blog, a poem, anything like that. That's another thing, just let me know. I definitely want to know about that. And then interestingly enough, because this happens quite often, I want to know if you've all but given up on that novel and now you work in a writing related job or field, like marketing, comms, PR, something like that. So the first thing that we're going to discuss in this little class / conversation is inspiration and what inspires you. So you have probably seen on the event and also on my Facebook page, there's 3 little documents that you can download and print. I want you to write down, either on those documents or on your own, what really ignites your passion and ideas. And feel free to comment, let me know as well. This is kind of organized chaos, so everyone's allowed to just put it out there and let's talk about it as a group. And if you need some ideas, I'll give you a little example using myself. What really ignites my passion and ideas are other good writers. Compliments from complete strangers that read something that I put out there. That always means the world to me and any writer. So if you love a writer, don't be afraid to say so because it really helps. Another thing that helps me is finding like-minded, passionate, and smart people that share in those same writing struggles as I do. So joining writing groups, for example. And then I'm not going to be afraid to say it, but what really drives me is competition and pride. It's just a core of my being. So I'm really competitive about certain things and mostly competitive with myself. Not the type of competitive that's going to throw elbows at somebody else necessarily. And I'm very prideful, but not necessarily in a bad way. I just really want to be proud of myself. So that competition with myself and that need to be proud of myself really helps ignite my passion and my ideas. The next thing I want you to write down is, what are your dreams, both in writing and in general? Because in general, if you want to buy a boat, if that's one of your dreams, then writing can help you get there. It's just what you're working towards in general, but especially when it comes to writing, since that's what we're talking about today. So what do you want? Do you want to be famous? Do you want to be published? Do you want to share family history, leave something for your kids, build a legacy, or do you just want to be on Oprah? Write it down, and again, give it a shout out, comment, let me know. I'm interested in your feedback. For me, I want to be able to have a full-time career in writing by the time I am 50, so I can spend my retirement years with enough income to live the rest of my life in a creative way. That's something that I've always been working towards. And let's be honest here, I want to be on Oprah too. Who wouldn't, right? I mean, Ellen, if you're listening, I'll also be on your show, and I love you as well. So as part of this dreams that you've been writing down, I also want you to specifically write down your ideal environment, your dream space. What does that look like for you? When we discussed it in class, a lot of people specifically said the mountains. They wanted to get away to write. They wanted a cottage. They wanted a certain writing space. I think all of us agreed that we wanted a place that was light and bright and natural. And for me, in addition to that kind of snowy mountain fireplace thing that we all agreed on, for me, I always dream of a really well-lit, bright, simple room with a very pretty desk, wood floors, a beautiful carpet, kind of like a display carpet, not carpet and wood floors. Have fresh flowers, and I basically dream of something that's straight out of an HGTV session, a show or a magazine. Probably proof that I watch those shows way too much, but that's alright. So now we're going to talk about a resolution to write. So let's get into it. I'm going to tailor this a bit to what I know about the people who attended this class live and about the different backgrounds they all came from and what they wanted to write about. So, however, we're creative people. You don't have to necessarily tell me all of your hopes and dreams. You can be quiet as well. But I do want to know if you watch this, so at least give it a like or a thumbs up or something like that to let me know that you are listening. But at any time, also feel free to comment, to ask a question or give a suggestion. We will go wherever you want to go, and I will continue with videos on any subject that you want to learn about. So, a resolution to write. Now that you've thought about it, what obstacles stand in your way, what is it that you want, and what that looks like for you? Naturally, this discussion about writing, so I have to give you a writing prompt. And it's hard, it's super hard. So I hope you're ready. In your resolution to write packets, if you've downloaded the pages, or if you just have a scrap piece of paper, I want you to write down, wait for it, one word. It's called the one-word resolution. And this word needs to be an all-encompassing word for what you want to overcome, achieve, and be in 2017. The one-word resolution, and begin now. While I'm talking, go ahead, think it out. Start to write it. Figure out what that one word is going to be. So you have until I finish blabbing over here to come up with that one word. Right now, I'm all your noise. I'm the excuses, I'm your work, I'm your kids, I'm your fears, I'm your tired feelings, your bad days, your broken computer, your distractions. I'm everything. And time's up. What did you say? There are no wrong answers. If you come up with something, nothing, or even half of something, you've done the hard part. You've begun. You've started. What does a one-word resolution have to do with all of this? Well, for one, it's the end of the year and it's resolution time, so why not? It's fun. But mostly, it is a promise to yourself for one word. It's an exercise in understanding what makes writing one word easy for you and what makes it difficult. Writing is just one word at a time. So I want to think to yourselves, maybe jot it down, a little observation on why that was easy and what kept you from instantly knowing what to place on the page. And that's going to tell you a lot about your writing process and the things that you put in your own way to do one word at a time. So let's get started on this journey together. Does anyone want to share their resolution? Put it in the comments out there. Let me know. But since this isn't interactive and you're watching an actual recording now, we're going to use myself to pick on. My one-word resolution for 2017 is to edit. And this really works for me because it isn't just about writing. This is an all-encompassing resolution for me. I'm going to edit my book. I'm going to edit what I say. I'm going to think first. And I'm going to stop talking so much. That's part of editing, right? So I'm going to stop talking so much starting right now. Just kidding. Totally kidding. Most importantly, in 2017, no matter what, I want you to know, and I want you to feel this for yourself. I will honor and celebrate myself if I edit even one thing in 12 months. So go ahead and place your one-worded resolution into that sentence. You will honor and celebrate yourself if you ... even one thing in 12 months. So do the same thing for your resolution. No strings attached, no amounts, no timing, nothing. It's not that I'm going to lose 10 pounds, I'm going to lose 5 kilos aspect of resolution. It's simply allowing yourself a place to succeed. So as far as my rules to writing go, I have 5 basic rules, and the first one is let go of expectation. So step 1 in the writer's journey is to let go of expectation, value every sense of how you achieve your one word, and don't attach the word to a string of sentences or paragraphs of meaning. Simplify, stay to that one word. Create mental positive space for yourself by removing pressure. Think, all I have to do this year is ... For me, all I have to do this year is edit. That's it. You think of it in a simplified manner. Don't get overwhelmed by it. At any time, at any point, and in no particular amount or fashion, all I have to do this year is edit. Step 2 in the writer's journey is give up. Yep, we're going to talk about giving up. Just go ahead, get it out of the way, give up, do it right now. It's going to happen. Get it behind you. But more particularly, I want you to give up on expectations. Lose all sense of expectations, of timing, and especially lose your sense of order. Drop the perfection game right now. I want you to almost, never, always, absolutely do not start at the beginning. Step 3, forget organized. Forget everything you ever learned about mapping storylines, character descriptions, or dialogue writing at this point. That's for the sake of getting organized the right way at a later point. For now, forget about it. Don't throw organization away, just set it aside. This is not the time for organized. We do not begin with perfection. And the most sure way to never actually get past page 1 is to start on page 1. Get unorganized, embrace disorder. You're going to have to get used to not doing things in any particular order. And this is why writers are crazy, so join the club. You're going to be another one of those creative people that goes nuts, and that is exactly why. Step 4, don't wait, write. I'm sure you've heard it before, writers write, or some people say, writers write every day. And I really hate that quote. It's not even true. No, that is just way too much pressure. We have to become writers first before we learn how to let go and do this for ourselves every day. But for now, I don't want you to have the expectation that the only thing that makes you a writer is if you write every day. That real writers or successful writers write consistently. That makes it sound like it comes super easy, and it will, but not right now. It's practice. That's what we're learning in this session right now. So don't wait, write. Inspiration comes whenever you least expect it, including when you force it. Inspiration is one of those strange things in life that only comes in droves when we practice being inspired. And you have to practice being inspired. That's why we have to begin by forcing it. So don't wait, write. Write right now. Start writing right now. Write about 1,600 words per day, every day, for 1 month, and you'll have a novel. That's approximately 2 full pages, single space typed, and normal size. We're not cheating here. We're not making it size 50. And I'm not telling you to write every day. Again, that's not something that I necessarily believe in, because if you force it too much, then it ends up being bad writing. You don't want bad writing. You want good, inspired writing. And if you're inspired, then you can inspire other people. For now, I'm telling you to write. Write right now. And whenever inspiration strikes or inspiration is forced, or you sit down and allow yourself that space to be inspired, do not stop. Your minimum requirement is 2 full pages. And even there, do not stop. And the last step is step 5 in the writer's journey. Here's irony for you, since my goal is to edit. But I'm at a different space than most people. I've gotten to that point where I can go back a little. So for you, we're talking about getting started. We're talking about hurdling that thing that's been stopping you for that great idea, that novel that you've always been thinking about. So I don't want you to go back. I don't want you to edit a single word. I don't even want you to reread any further than the last word you just typed. Don't even read the sentence you just came from. Do not go back. Never go back. Not at this stage. The irony, if you didn't catch it, is that my resolution is to edit. And that's because I've arrived at a place where I can. I'm 120,000 words into what is not meant to be the next Harry Potter novel. But I'm at that point where I finally arrived at my beginning. So now I get to review a little. I get to clean up for a bit. But not very much. Not yet. I essentially get to create draft 2 and then keep going as if it were the beginning. So ignore the fact that my resolution was to edit and just listen to this part about getting started. So the same goes for you. No matter how lost you feel in your own storyline, or if you can't remember someone's name, the spelling of their name, their features, or if you've plumb forgot you've already been here at this point of the story before, did you already write this? Every time you sit to continue your masterpiece, start a brand new document. Open file new. Get used to it. Do not go back. The 2 things that keep every dream novelist from achieving their goals are, number 1, trying to start at the beginning, having those expectations and that sense of perfection. And number 2, rereading, fixing, editing, and building doubt in yourself. So stop right now. So my advice, sorry, not sorry, essentially is getting into the nitty-gritty of the 5 steps that I just went over with you. So for the bit about advice, here's my advice on getting started. When I write, I start at the point I have no doubt about, and I'm most excited to be writing about in that moment. I start with a story that I can already see in my head. It's happening, it's flowing. It is never page 1. It is never the final page. It is always somewhere in the middle. Why? When you write about what you're feeling in that moment, you are a better writer. Your words are less forced. They're more genuine and inspiring. So start with that cute meet point between 2 characters. Or if you had a terrible night of sleep the night before, great! Don't use it as an excuse. Use it to write. Use it to write about a fight between 2 characters. Use it to describe a particularly tiresome moment for one of your characters. You are your greatest source of inspiration, so start with what inspires you, good or bad. As many great writers say, write what you know. This comes down to the very moment you put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard. It's not just a general quote. It comes down to those exact moments. In that moment, write what you know. Put that love or that suffering into words. Get involved with yourself when you write. I do not recommend timers, at least not in the fashion of 2 hours and then my time is up. I've done my writing for the day. If you're going to use timers because that's the way that your personality is, I recommend 15 minutes at a time and writing against the clock. And that's one way to really get yourself into writer's mode pretty quickly. Similarly, I do not schedule windows. I do not schedule a 2-hour block of time. Instead, when I'm writing, I leave room and create flexibility in my life for those unexpected and inspired moments. But without a doubt, I take 1 or 2 days a week where I carve out time. So this is something we discussed a little in class. When you know you're going to write a novel, it's more about just saying Wednesday night is my night to write. I'm going to write until I'm done. And it's also about carving out time for an entire month of your life. You're going to make sure you get up earlier. You're going to do your work faster. You're going to plan less with friends. You're going to really, and I'm not saying you have to do it that way, but you're really going to allow yourself that room, that quietness in your life to be inspired. So for me, I'm more of an evening person. Mornings have too much pressure in my life. So I dedicate to 4 p.m. on a Wednesday. I do not leave until I'm done. I write until I'm empty, not just drained. Being drained is a necessary moment sometimes. I write until I'm empty, completely lost on any words whatsoever. When running on empty is your goal, you'll never really have to worry about reaching that minimum 2-page goal. It is actually quite difficult to stop at only 2 pages, and 2 pages is a minimum because if you're having a particularly hard time getting started, 2 pages tends to be that average point where all of a sudden your brain engages and you're working, you're involved. And we'll talk about what we do to make sure that those pause points are not too difficult as well. So when you start like this, when you start from inspired moments only, you'll get those 10 or even 20,000 words really fast. They'll come in 2 or 3 weeks. I promise you, as long as you practice that letting go and write until you're empty on those inspired moments, the majority of your book is going to come out pretty quickly. Do not beat yourself up as it gets harder. That's normal. The more you write, the less there is to write, and the more you're thinking about the perfect words to tie it all together. Don't even think about that right now. Just start from those inspired moments. So the truth is that yes, the further you get along, the more it does slow down. As you leave those inspiring, already imagined moments of the story and work on transitions and necessary details, you come to a point where you spend most of your time thinking and even a bit of researching. So what comes naturally to you hasn't stopped, it's just slowed down. So do not panic, do not give up. This happens to everybody, it happens to the best novelists, and we'll talk more about how to overcome that. So, ta-da! We're going to talk about it. Overcoming pause. My next bit of advice is all about that pause. We have a couple different scenarios of what pause could possibly mean for you. So again, always give yourself the goal of no less than 2 pages. But that doesn't mean, I wrote 2 pages, now I'm done. That just means when you're really struggling to get started, to be proud of yourself in that moment, at least make it to 2 pages. We said that and can't stress it enough because some of you are going to be extremely scared to get started. You're going to have trouble letting go of expectations and order. This is where the minimal goal will become your well-practiced friend. If you're having trouble getting started at all, write something else. So that's scenario 1. So, for example, while I may be working on a distinct part of a novel, sometimes I need to get into the zone. If I go write a boring, unplanned blog post ranting about my day, then I've emptied myself of thinking about work, grocery lists, and plans, and I've moved on to a clean slate. I've put it out there and I'm in writer's mode. If you've gone so far into the story and well beyond all your instant inspiration points and don't know where to start for your carved out time, start with forcing description. So this is another scenario. You force description and you do some practicing essentially of writing. So a lot of people will do some writing prompts and different practice. But this one's particularly effective because you get to use it and it's some serious practice. So if you're having trouble getting started, write a character description. Write as many adverbs and adjectives down about who, what, and how that person is as a character. While this paragraph or page isn't part of the storyline, it is something you'll absolutely use every word of in finalizing your novel. This is another way of getting into writing mode. So both of those suggestions are for when you're at absolute zero and nothing comes to mind when you're sitting down. The last scenario, and the scariest in some ways, is when you start strong into a scene and fall short because your brain goes dead. You have writer's block mid-sentence. You can't get out 2 pages on one simple scene even though you were completely inspired to start there. At this point, I urge you, don't pause to beat yourself up. Don't try to force what isn't coming to you in that moment. When that happens, I want you to draw a line or type out a line, bold a short description of where you think your train of thought was going with what you were working on, the characters you were going to introduce, the connections you were trying to make, then draw another page break across the page, whether you're actually writing or typing. And if you can continue with a different part of the same scene or chapter, then continue further down the road. Continue directly after your page break. If you can't continue with that same scenario whatsoever, then start a new page. Open up a new document, and that's something we're going to get really practiced on. Move on to another part of the storyline, another chapter, another scene that you can get involved in at that point in time on a new page, a completely fresh document, and continue there if you can. Try not to think of the minimum goal. Just know and trust that 2 pages is the easy part. But again, no matter what, your goal is to write until you're empty. If you struggle to get to 2 pages that day, get there by any means, and then ask yourself, am I empty? Don't stop until you are. And that's why you don't carve out 2 hours or set a timer for 2 hours. That's why instead, like me, I say 4 p.m. on a Wednesday until I'm completely empty. And at some point, you'll have a new idea. You'll want to edit something you've said, or you may not recall if you've even written that part yet. Does not matter. Write it again. If you think you wrote it before, write it again. If you're inspired to write it again and you know you've written it before, go ahead and write it again. In the end, you'll be surprised at the unique brilliance in each version, and you'll get to combine them. You'll have just the perfect sentence in one and a perfect sentence in the other, and they both come from inspired moments. So always write about what you're inspired about, even if it's something you know that you've already been to and already visited. You might have something new to say, and the more you get into writing, the further along you get into your book, the better writer you're going to become. Your writing style may change. So definitely rewrite if you feel inspired to. But mostly, this is just reiterating, never go back, do not edit, do not reread. Always start fresh with a new page. So for me, how I know when to start on a new page and when to continue on another page is entirely on my writing session. So I always start with a new page at a writing session, even if I'm continuing on a story that I've already written on another page, or if I suddenly know how to fill in the blanks from a page break that I put on another page. I will title this new document in a way that lets me know where it possibly belongs, and I'll start new. So every session, start new. And then while you're in that session, as long as what you're writing about is the same scene, the same scenario, and along the same lines, if it flows, keep it in one document. Just spend that entire session just going with one document. But if you go all the way to the end of this part, and you're not necessarily empty on writing, you're just empty with this part, and you're still in your writing session and you still have more to say, that's when you open up a new document. So hopefully that helps out a little bit in describing what that actually means. Same storyline or same day of writing, all you can do is use just as we were talking about, the same storyline is one page, one document, a new storyline, a redo, or a new day is a new document. Never write the whole thing in one document, and here's why. There's multiple reasons why. This breaks your habit of editing and rereading much faster. Every time you start on a new page, you won't feel the need to scroll up because there's nothing to scroll up to, and this is absolutely the most important bit of advice I was ever given. I was not able to get past any part of writing a novel until I really understood this just open up a new page concept. This also breaks your ideal story and what you believe you should have happen in your story and leaves room for all that can happen with your story. So that's really big because you think you have this perfect story in mind, but that story is going to grow and it's going to move and you're going to become a better writer as you write it. And that's why we do these new documents rather than one single document, because you're going to have opportunities to rewrite and the way that you write is going to change, and it's better to have all of these different aspects as notes when you get to a rewriting or editing phase than it is to have just one giant document. And the last but not least advice as to why we don't put it in one document: if all goes to shit and something doesn't sink or save, you lose a corner of your story and not the entire book, because we all know that shit happens. So another piece of advice that I have is to pick a new place. Don't write where you habitually do anything else. I'm sure you've heard it from your mom when you were in grade school. You don't study near your bed because you're going to fall asleep. Your mental patterns will adjust to where you create space for yourself. That space exists in your mind as it does in real life. So this means don't write where you sleep, eat, work, or frequent coffee with a friend. Your favorite coffee shop where people know you by name is not going to help you stay focused. It's going to be a distraction. Pick a new corner. Make this your writing environment. For me, I like to not be at home because every time something beeps or goes off, I think I have to cook, I have to do another load of laundry, I have to get this dust, I have to figure out this or that. Oh my goodness. I do not like writing at home. I go to unusual places for me, places that I do not frequent. I'll go to a corner of my work office that I never pass by, that's on another side of the office, and I make that my writing spot for when I'm inspired in the middle of the day, when I want to write during a lunch break or immediately after work. Or I go to the roof of where I live and I sit in a particular corner on the roof because, let's face it, I don't spend a lot of time up there sunbathing. It's just not who I am. And this leads us straight into the concept of writer's hygiene. And I don't mean brush your teeth before you write, except that that's exactly what I mean, just in another way. In this context, hygiene isn't a word that just means bodily awareness. It is a word that has less pressure and more positives to it than the word ritual, and it is easier to fall into than the word habit. So we're going to call this your writer's hygiene, because writer rituals and writer habits just seem way too much pressure. And hygiene is something that you just fall into. You do without even thinking about it. It's like you don't even have a choice. So here you're going to figure out what the put on my slippers, brush my teeth, get a glass of water, listen to a meditation equivalent of writing is for you. Part of figuring this out is figuring out if you're a morning, afternoon, or evening writer, figuring out if you're a weekday or a weekend writer, You want to do something you can be consistent with and help that fall into that hygiene. For me, there are certain things I never do alone, so I amplify that. I pour myself a glass of wine or beer because I never drink alone, and it's not even something I necessarily enjoy alone, but it's kind of goes in line with the glass of water before bed. And to me, part of my writer's hygiene is kind of amplifying that romanticism of writers that I love about the Hemingway age and about all these different eras of the Beat generation and what it was that they were doing. So I'll pour myself a drink, and most often than not, it just gets warm before I even want to drink it. But it's part of my thing, it's part of my writer's hygiene. I always wear my hair up and out of my face because I don't want it to be distracting, I don't want to fiddle with it, and I don't want to worry about what it looks like. I take off my shoes when I write. I dress comfortably, but not pajama comfortable or workout clothes comfortable because those are different mindsets. I usually take a certain shawl or a blanket that makes me feel comfortable like a writer. I wear my glasses because it makes me feel like a writer, makes me feel smarter. I sit on the floor when I write, and I always near a corner, away from people. That's just what's good for my space. And if I'm in a corner, I have no excuses to turn around to see what's going on around me. Everything I need to know is in my peripheral vision, so I have less distractions that way. And same for the floor. I think I just feel more grounded on the floor. I feel like I have more awareness of what's going on around me. So there's always a good floor chair or a good beanbag I like to be down on. And I always wear my headphones, although I never listen to anything unless it can somehow transport me to a place necessary to provoke better writing. But I just wear them. It signifies a sense of quiet and lets others know not to bother me. So that's one of the prime reasons why I wear them. Now you're probably wondering at this point, when do I get to go back? When you're done, you'll know. Trust me, you'll know. But to give it some logical points so that you have something to work towards, generally a writer's goal is 50,000 words twice a year. The nanoremo.org supports writers in a sort of self-competition and digital writers group with local support twice a year in November and March. And both of those competitions are 50,000 words each month, so that's 100,000 words a year. So if you want to reach that traditional editor's point, you'll need an 80,000 to 120,000 word novel to be the equivalent of what is on the shelves today. And I hate to say it, but a lot of editors, a lot of publishers look for word count. So that is something that's necessary. And even if you're going to self-publish, if you have dreams of your self-published novel getting picked up, you really need to adhere to kind of the average of what's going on out there. So on average, memoirs and nonfiction are generally shorter. They're more on the 80,000 word side. And then the farther down the fiction line you go, such as a fantasy novel, the longer the novels become. So this is why your Lord of the Rings and Harry Potters are very long novels, but also very long series, because technically it's one gigantic novel that they did you the favor of breaking up. So just to give you an idea, if you were to do a NaNoWriMo competition in November and you just finished 50,000 words, 50,000 words comes out to about 100 pages of a book, or 58 pages typed. So aim for 50,000 before you go back to any point at all. This is kind of a minimum. And even when you reach 50,000, ask yourself, am I empty? Am I done? If not, don't go back. Keep going. Even if you set it aside and go on a long vacation first, come back to a point where you can keep going on a new page. For me, I put an entire year between, actually 2 years for this recent novel, between writing the first 50,000 and the second 50,000. And it's really interesting. Without fail, I started on a new document. I didn't even go back and look at my old documents, and I didn't repeat anything. Now that I've gone and taken a peek, now that I'm at that 120,000 word point, it's kind of surprising to me that I didn't repeat myself at all. So that's something that you can definitely do, but don't give it too much time, because the more time you take between writing, the less that inspiration comes easily to you. So this is just an example of how I organize once I've reached that 50,000 point and I have those really descriptive titles for each one of the individual documents. You can tell I'm writing a lot about music here. And then I start dragging and dropping those different documents into the kind of writing storyboard. So exposition being the intro, rising action being what's leading us to that climax or crisis, the climax being the turning point of the book, and then falling action being when things start to calm down and make sense, and then resolution is when it all comes together, loose ends tied, completely makes sense at this point. So you'll see here that I still have a number of documents to drag into those folders, and that's just generally how I do it. And to quickly talk about what you do next once you've written that much, once you know that you're done, essentially at this point it's going to be like that thesis you wrote to get your degree. You're going to take all of these like notes. You're going to take it like the quotes from your textbook, like the notes from Google, and the notes that you've taken in class. And you're going to bring all these different resources together, and you're going to write something from start to finish. So these are, at this phase, this is draft 1. This is your resources. And you're going to go to draft 2, and that's when you're going to bring it all together. You might have to do a draft 3 based on something really simple. At that point, it would just be cleaning up, making sure you're using, past tense or present tense all the way through, making sure that if you're flip-flopping between storylines, that's consistent, making sure that, I forgot what I was going to say, making sure that there's no blatant errors, essentially. You want to make sure that you stay either in third person or first person, and that's the kind of thing you want to do for that third draft, and then you're ready to have someone else look at it. You never want to do your own final editing because you will start to write backwards, just like we talked about earlier. Don't go backwards. Write backwards, don't go backwards, because if you do your own editing, you're going to take something that's absolutely brilliant, and that people are going to think is absolutely brilliant, and you're going to start to unwrite it because of your own doubt, and you're going to start to move it and fix it in ways that are just going to ruin it, because at this time you've been looking at it for way too long. So these are my final words, just kind of going over everything we've talked about before. Above all else, I want you to take away the ability to let go. You cannot control art. Stories are alive, and you are the magician to their life. Allow your ideas to breathe by removing all expectation of order, outcome, or perfection. Perfectionists hate to hear this, but perfection is not an achievement. It is a phase of work between start and finish. In writing, it is the number one thing holding you back from finishing: perfectionism and order. This is why editors are generally other people and not you, but we'll get there. We'll get to more details on editing. That's an entirely different class. My last piece of advice is to be accountable. Remove yourself from that equation, however. Tell as many people as you can that in 2017 you're writing a novel. Host or join a writing group, and now you're really screwed because you've put yourself in other people's hands and you need to show up for them. However, the truth is, it is easier to show up for others than it is to show up for yourself. So make yourself accountable to others who are depending on you to be there and come through. And again, this is just a little bit about following me. I will be posting, commenting on any comments that I receive and any requests I have for further knowledge. I will do more recordings. You can find me on Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram under the same name, and here on Facebook under the same name. And I want to thank WeWork Martin Place here in Sydney, Australia for inviting me to teach a writing class, and also we should be doing a writers group in the new year. So thank you for that, and thanks for listening.